Something happened on your end, I guess.
Yeah, the last thing that I heard was you say taking a deep breath to change the body chemistry.
Right.
Mhm.
So that's one's right effort.
Mhm.
One's right effort is to actually change the body chemistry,
Mhm.
taking a few deep breaths. Also, right um, effort to change the mental attitude
Mhm.
from being serious. As I mentioned before, that seriousness is only something that a victim can do.
Mhm.
Let's say when the kid's getting slapped around by the bully doesn't have to be serious. He could do it in fun. But being slapped around requires being serious about it.
Uh, okay.
Okay. So if the bully was really having fun, he wouldn't be taking it out on another kid.
Sure. Yeah.
So in that regard, there's levels of it. But
Mhm.
coming out of it so that we um, are no longer serious.
Mhm.
And so the first thing that we need to do then is gladden the mind, which is step 10.
Mhm.
Okay. So we can think of it like this is that we became aware that the mind had wandered away into seriousness. And that recognition that the mind has wandered away into seriousness is now sati, or it can also be called step 9 of anapanasati, to experience the mind. I'm actually experiencing the mind, and it is serious.
Right.
And we can see that seriousness. So
Right.
the first thing that we can do is we can say, aha, seriousness, I see you.
Right. Mhm.
And so now we've got two different jobs to do with this right effort. One is to actually take the deep breath, and the other one is to change the mind state,
Mhm.
to change the mind from being serious into, aha, I see that seriousness.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so we gladden the mind. Now that's step 9 and 10, and step 1 and 2.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as we then experience the body, for instance, if we're working with a particular emotion, and one would be depression and the other one would be anxiety, which in fact they're generally the same thing anyway, depending upon the attitude. And so when you see that anxiety in the body, that anxiety is actually associated with being serious. Something
Mhm.
serious is going on here, and I need to be uptight about it.
Mhm.
But by experiencing the body, then we can let that stuff relax. And so this is the first four steps of Anapanasati is to experience the long breath, to know the long breath that's in, to know the long breath that's out, and then to experience the body with all of the feelings and sensations that are there, and then to let go of that, to relax,
Mhm.
to become passive. Now, in Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, he uses the word tranquilize, but that's
Mhm.
not a very good word to use. Tranquilizers look like guns being shot and chemicals being put in and
Mhm.
animals going to sleep so that the radio collar can be put on or something. So, tranquilizing is not a good image, but relaxing, that actually can be done rather than something magical, tranquilizing without a tranquilizer dart.
Mhm.
Okay. So just relaxing the body. This is the first four steps of it. And also, we're incorporating the mind in the sense of knowing the mind, and we're gladdening the mind. This then gives us the position to start working directly with Vedana or
Mhm.
directly with feelings, which is basically what we were talking about last week, of changing our attitude about things because we were serious. Now that we say, I catch that seriousness, now we can start taking in breaths as if the breath itself is going to help things become lighthearted.
Okay.
or even if you're good at it, lightheaded.
Okay.
And so we pump ourselves up literally over and over again by taking more oxygen. We actually are waking up the human part of the brain and becoming um, more human
Mm-hmm.
and less reptilian, which is the source of all of these instincts. I mean, all the instincts that you have, an alligator has them too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not so much the nesting instinct. That's more mammalian. But the self-preservation instinct, the ability to walk, the ability to see and hear, swish your tail, chew your food and digest it, all of that kind of stuff that alligators can do,
Mm-hmm.
that can be done by humans with their reptilian brain without ever having a human thought,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they go into the voting booth. They only take their reptilian brain into the voting booth.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to take their human brain in there because they're not used to waking it up. But here we are. We're going to start waking up that frontal cortex,
Mm-hmm.
and we do that with the breath, and we do that with the intention, so that now we've got the Eightfold Noble Path actually in process. One, we've got the right view. The right view is let's not be in a state of um, seriousness. Let's come out of that.
Yeah.
All right, that's the right view. Right, sati is to remember to look at what you're doing right now. And if you find seriousness, there you go. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the sati and the recognition of that then is step 9 of experiencing the mind. Later, as you do a deeper investigation, the experience of the mind will deepen in the sense that you know whether it's drowsy or whether it's awake or whether it is distracted or whether it's unified,
Right.
whether it's exalted, whether it's concentrated, whether you've got the jhana factors together. All of that kind of stuff will be part of the investigation of the mind. But the very first one is, am I watching the breath or am I not? Has the mind wandered away from the breath?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing that we do in sitting meditation, so that
Mm-hmm.
we come back to the breath. And yet, for some reason, how important the breath is, even though it's the number one item on the Buddha's list, somehow or another, we all tend to forget about it rather than recognizing, wow, this is an important point,
Mm-hmm.
is to take that deep breath and at the same time gladden the mind with the, I see that seriousness, or I see the mind wanders away, or I see that anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
By the seeing of it and the recognition of it being there and the deep breath is now what it takes to start to climb out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Vedana comes in. This is when now we start working on attitude. The attitude that I am not a victim of this seriousness. I am, in fact, very happy that I can see it and come
Right.
out of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these two qualities then is called rapture and sensual pleasure in the suttas. And when we see those two words, it doesn't mean a thing. But when we understand it in the Pali, that
Uh-huh.
this is the piti, that is in fact a factor of the first jhana,
Mm-hmm.
and it is an attitude,
Mm-hmm.
and that sukha is partly the result of that attitude. So we can use two different words now. One would be success, would be piti, and then satisfaction would be sukha. And along with that satisfaction comes security. Okay, so we're now actually going to intentionally develop the quality of success
Mm-hmm.
and the quality of satisfaction and the quality of security or
Mm-hmm.
safety.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, these things that we've just mentioned are actually part of what's mentioned in the Anapanasati Sutta under the term of idiyapada. Idiyapada is the word which means, the Sanskrit word is siddhi, and it means magical power.
Oh, yeah, the CDs. Yeah.
Okay, the siddhis, right?
Yeah.
But in the Pali, it is iti, and the powers are real.
Okay.
Not magical. People who don't have the real power will then try to invent them magically. But the real power is actually feelings. The power of feeling successful, the power of feeling like you're in charge of this moment, that you're the boss here. That's a feeling, and you can tell how good it feels. It feels good to know that you're in charge, that you're the emperor of your own pile of dirt. You're not buried under it. You're on top of it. You're on top of things. Another way of thinking about it, and this is out of the terms of the 1970s, you've got your shit together. That's actually the quality that we're looking for. There is gathering things together, to not leave things diverse and split off so that we go that way and then we go this way, but rather we become unified. And part of that unity is to bring these feelings into this state of being satisfied because we're successful. And while we're successful and satisfied, that arises that feeling of sukha, that's based in security. In other words, all is right with the world, but it's not a dangerous place. I do not feel under attack right now, that I'm safe. So when you add that safety and that satisfaction and that success of the job well done, and we put those things together, that's actually the jhana factors.
Okay.
And that we could also say that we're secluded from the hindrance, and this hindrance in this moment is kind of got the label on it of it's serious. This is serious business we're doing here. Grim up, folks. I had that's a joke, by the way. When my psychology trainer would start the class, that's how he would always start off with, grim up, folks.
Grim up, folks.
Yeah. But he said it in a joking way because naturally nobody grinned up, but they did start to pay attention. Okay. So what he's saying is, this is serious, pay attention. But we don't have to become grim if things are actually serious but lighthearted. Some things are worth paying attention to, but we're not talking about the feeling, or we're talking about the feeling of seriousness rather than the attention that an object is demanding in the moment. And so we're gathering the factors together. The seriousness is out, which means the hindrances are out. We're secluded from them. We also now have that feeling of great success and the satisfaction that goes along with that. That is piti and sukha. We've also taken a deep breath and gotten the mind body energized, and so now we've got the mind fit for work. And so the next two items on the jhana list for first jhana is that to apply the mind and sustain the mind, which means to put it on something and being able to keep it there. Okay, so we apply the mind and sustain the mind. An example of this would be able to read a book. You know, there's two kinds of ways of reading. One is that you pick up a book, you really like it, you get interested in it, and you follow along what's going on, and you read this and you understand, you read that and you understand, you get to the next line or the next paragraph in the next page, fully following along.
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't read that way.
Mm-hmm.
Most people will pick up a book or an article, they'll start to read it, they'll have a thought about what they're reading, and then they'll read a bit more and have another thought. And now the eyes are following along with the words while the mind is off someplace else.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they were able to apply the mind to the text only for a short time, but they weren't able to sustain it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. How we're going to be working with this is to apply the mind and sustain it on this satisfaction, on this success, on this security, and on this lack of seriousness.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way of maintaining that, is that we get ourselves into first jhana, and then we work at maintaining that first jhana by not allowing unwholesome thoughts come back into the mind. In this regard, the kind of thoughts that would come back to the mind would be serious thoughts.
Okay. So, all right. So I'll be applying my attention to the feeling of success and satisfaction in the body. In the whole body?
Well, wherever you might find it.
Okay. And might I find it in random places, or am I going to find it in the chest, or am I going to find it in my foot?
Let us say that it so I almost want to answer that one, but I'll go back to what I was saying, that it has to do with an investigation.
Okay.
That there is a lot of stuff that you need to investigate for yourself. And that's a big part of the path, to keep sustaining it in the sense of being on watch for wholesome and unwholesome thoughts.
Okay.
So, in that regard, I would think a bit more on wholesome and unwholesome thoughts, as opposed to a particular place in the body, like a foot. But yeah, you can watch the foot. Foots are really nice places to pay attention.
All right.
Can you feel the space between the toes? Can you distinguish the feeling of the big toe from the little toe?
I can distinguish the big toe from the little toe. It's the third and fourth toe that are more difficult to distinguish.
Okay. Can you even control them individually?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So that's a toy to play with.
Yeah.
And you stopped playing with your feet when you were 3 months old.
Yeah.
So yeah, toys are really nice to play with, but they're certainly not worth being serious over.
Yeah, that's right.
So whatever it is that occurs, this is worthy of attention, worthy of paying an investigation moment too, so that you investigate things with the intention of maintaining that state of satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So when we bring these jhana factors together, then this is what is called first jhana. Number one item is that it's the seriousness and the other hindrances are gone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The next one is that the mind is gladdened, and that the feeling of success and the feeling of satisfaction are there.
Mm-hmm.
And also that the mind is fit for work because we've gotten it oxygenated.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind is now fit for work. So we're going to apply it on what's happening in the present moment and sustain that in the sense of just watching what's going on, with the idea of keeping out unwholesome thoughts and keeping in and maintaining wholesome thoughts.
Okay. So what I'll be watching then is my mind.
Yep.
Okay.
Or you can watch your fingers as they play with the beard. I mean, there's all kinds of things to watch.
Okay, so I can watch anything as long as
It's
I'm.
satisfying and it's not serious.
All right.
Is to come out of the seriousness. Sure, it's okay to play with the beard as long as you
Yeah.
know that that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. I will work on these things.
Excellent, excellent.
I will play
Next
with
time
these
we will
things.
talk about things in the sense of the wholesome is what is it that's really worth paying attention to.
Okay.
But I'll give you that in uh, introductory form, in the sense of the things that are unwholesome are going to take you out of the first jhana, and the things that are wholesome are going to help you to sustain that,
Mm-hmm.
keep it going, so that you feel like you're in a state of satisfaction.
All right.
That this is good.
You have
This
a
is
cl-
marvelous.
you have
This
a
is.
you have a Cliff Notes version.
Actually, the Anapanasati Sutta is a Cliff Notes version. That's the reason that it's such a problem for most people, is because it's actually just um, items on a list,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and they don't understand the details of it.
Right.
Okay, so basically, we're talking about step 5 of Anapanasati, which is rapture or piti, or the feeling of success,
Right. Mm-hmm.
which also has to do with the attitude,
Mm-hmm.
right attitude, which is part of the Eightfold Noble Path.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have step 6, which is sukha. Sukha is actually the experience of being free from suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So sukha is actually the third noble truth as being experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, this is nice.
Mm-hmm.
No suffering here in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so now the point is, can we sustain that state?
Mm-hmm.
Can we sustain it? We do by not bringing serious thoughts in.
Mm-hmm.
Serious thought comes in, nope, out of here. No
Mm-hmm.
seriousness allowed. This is this is playtime for the mind.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll talk to you next time.
All right. I'll call you in a few days' time or so.
Excellent. Go practice this. Go
I
practice
will.
being completely out of seriousness.
I will. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.